Hello and welcome to the Sports Leadership Playbook Podcast. Dr. Robert Pryor coming to you today with a special guest. Jen Miller-McEachern is here joining us from Brown University. Jen is the Associate Director of Athletics for Student Athlete Development at Brown, and she is also an alum from the Master of Sports Leadership program. She's done wonderful work in her time in athletics, and I'm happy to have you on board, Jen.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you.
It's great to see you too, Jen. So I'll just open the floor to you, and if you could just give a little overview of your background, connection to Northeastern, and how your career started, maybe even going back to your days as a student athlete, and kind of walk through that, and then we'll dive a little deeper after that.
Okay, well, you're making me go way back, so I'll try and summarize as quickly as I can. So I went to Springfield College for my undergraduate. I was a gymnast there, so I was a student athlete there. Um, I graduated with an elementary education degree. I don't think I've ever used that degree. Um, And I think something that I had always done was coach, right? I mean, from when I was a teenager. And so when I graduated, I started substitute teaching, and, substitute teachers don't make a lot of money. So I thought, well, I have another skill. So I went back into a private club, and worked there for years, just did substitute teaching and club work. And then one of my very good friends who was on the men's team at the same time I was on the women's team at Springfield called me and said, "Do you want to be my assistant coach at MIT?" And I was like, "Sure." Um, so it was with the understanding that I would take over the program as the head coach, because he was trying to transition into a different role at like his main job, because at the time MIT women's gymnastics head coach and assistant coach were part-time positions. So we did that. I had a great first year with him, learned a lot. And then my second year I transitioned to be the head coach. And that was, I think, in the early 2000s. And so at that time, women's gymnastics programs were still getting cut. And
Mm.
so in 2009, my program was cut. At the time, MIT had 41 varsity sports, second only to Harvard with no, actually, at the time, we were tied with Harvard
Mm.
for 41 sports.
Mm.
And that's just not sustainable.
Sure.
So if you're, I mean, Harvard might be able to sustain it, but MIT couldn't. And so in 2009, sort of when the economy was really bad, they cut 11 sports, and mine was one of them. But I was lucky enough to have some mentors there that I still consider very good friends, that hired me in an administrative role. And the only thing that was available at the time that was full time was the equipment manager's role. And I was like, I don't know anything about football helmets or anything. So, but I was willing to learn because it was 2009 and people were losing their jobs and I was being offered one. So,
Hmm.
um, I took that and said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to become a professional in the field. And so I did. I became certified in equipment management, and ended up doing, regional and national like workshop sessions, just because I sort of dove in head first. And my mentors really recognized that I had a knack for administrative work. And so they really pushed me to get my master's, because I didn't have my master's yet. And there were many people before me that had graduated from the sports leadership program at Northeastern, at MIT. So it was kind of like just what you did. If you were thinking about going to grad school, you went into that program if you were working at MIT. And I think just because the flexibility that it gave, where you could do online or hybrid, I hadn't been to school in a very long time. So like at that point when I had graduated undergraduate, I didn't even have an email address. So like I went to the computer lab to get online.
Wow.
So I was really like a little shaky my first class because it was all online.
Hmm.
It's the only I gotta be in. And I I realized that I really needed that interaction in class. So my journey through sports leadership was like really very much a hybrid. I really enjoyed doing some of those leadership classes, in the classroom with other students, which was great. And MIT is very close to Northeastern, so it just sort of worked. And then I graduated from the program, and I ended up getting reconnected with gymnastics because the national governing organization for Division III gymnastics, the ADs got together and they basically said, we need to create like an executive director position to oversee this like single sport conference. And so I was their inaugural executive director and I had to build an office from the ground up. I leaned on my network for help with that. Um, and then I realized that there was just no real opportunity for growth for me at MIT. I loved MIT and I did not want to leave, but I knew if I ever had the opportunity to come back, I would need to go and get some
Hmm.
experience. Um, and there was an opportunity for an assistant director for the NUMAC conference, which is just a small D3 conference in Boston, which had MIT in it, and it was all Massachusetts schools. So Wellesley, Mount Holyoke, WPI, Emerson, Coast Guard was the only non-Massachusetts school. I'm drawing a blank, but there were, I think, 8 at the time. Um, and I loved that work. I did compliance, governance, championships, heavy on the governance side with, creating legislation and working with administrative groups and coaches groups. And I loved that. I loved everything about it. And the NUMAC is such a great conference.
Hmm.
Um, but I really missed being on a campus. I really wanted that energy of being on a campus. And
Hmm.
so I thought I really just have to look to see what's out there. And there was a assistant director for compliance role at Brown. And so I leaned on my network, and the gymnastics coach at the time at Brown and I were very good friends. And I said, tell me more about this. And she's like, you need to apply for this. And I was like, but I've never done like compliance as my main job. She's like, don't worry about it. I think that the person that you would report to is really looking for someone that they don't have to mentor to be a professional. You're
Hmm.
already a professional. If they could only just teach them compliance, I think you would be an attractive candidate.
Hmm.
So applied, and that's exactly what happened. I basically went through my interview saying, I don't know much about Division I compliance, but I'm a fast learner. um, and I actually also on that hiring committee was the old MIT water polo coach, Felix Mercado, who has been the water polo coach for years here at Brown. Um, so that was an interesting process. And loved that job, but the pandemic wrecked compliance officers.
Hmm.
The NCAA was changing legislation literally every week. And so it usually happened around Fridays between 4 and 6, which was really infuriating. And um, so I thought I can't sustain being in compliance. This is that so many things are changing.
Hmm.
The transfer portal had just like arrived right when I got to Brown in
Hmm.
compliance. And then I started to see the writing on the wall with NIL as the legislation was being developed. And I thought,
Hmm.
this is going to be crazy town. So I need to get out of compliance. And at the time, our athletic director here, he had left and Dr. Grace Calhoun was hired as our new vice president and athletic director. And she has done amazing things. The transformation of this athletics division, which was the biggest change, we transitioned under her leadership from a department to a division, which was a big change, which meant that she was now part of the president's cabinet, which we hadn't had before. Um, one of her staples wherever she goes is that she really likes to build out like student athlete services and student athlete development. And so she hired my incredible boss, Sean Hendricks, who came from Cal. And she said, you get two positions. So take however much time you need to figure out what those two positions are. And so I learned that he was getting two positions, and I kept saying, I do a lot of academic support through compliance. I really think you need like an academic person. And he was like, yeah, yeah. So he took the year, and that's exactly what he did. He created a coordinator's position to support the unit. And then he created my position, which is academic services and career development focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I interviewed like everybody else, and I ended up getting the job. And it was a very smooth transition because I was
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of the academic support already, but
Mm-hmm.
really just started to create programming and systems. And now we're hiring an additional person.
Wow.
So things are going well here at
Yeah.
Brown.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. What a great story. You
Well,
highlight the fact that you leaned on your network, which is really important in any industry, any job or career path. But it is important to have people that you can talk with, that can advise you, people that have a connection. So you knew people that knew about the program at Northeastern, and then got involved with people you knew through the gymnastics world, and took on that role, and people you knew from MIT were at Brown, and it's just
mhm,
everybody is somehow connected, and everybody knows somebody somewhere. And when you do great
mhm,
work, you're going to be somebody they recommend. So you're a
yeah,
great example of how using networking and utilizing your network to help grow and help to advance in your career is really an art. And now being in student athlete services, that's something I'm sure that you need to teach the students about. So you've lived it,
yeah,
and having also been in the compliance world, that's kind of a bonus where you understand compliance. So you can
mhm,
communicate with the student athletes and not worry about, oh, am I doing something that's not according to NCAA guidelines? Well, you know what the guidelines are. So you've kind of carved
right.
out your own little niche, right? I mean, you've made yourself valuable,
Yeah,
and you've learned a
yeah,
lot along the way, but you've applied that, and you're in a new department that now is growing, and obviously the athletic director has to be happy with the direction that things are going, since she puts such a focus on student
mm,
athletes. Congratulations on that.
yeah. Thanks, thanks.
You're welcome, Jen. No, you're a rock star. You've always been very ambitious, and your enthusiasm uh, is always evident. So I'm sure the student athletes
Aw,
really love hearing from you too, because you're passionate, and having had that coaching background, you understand what their needs are, and you understand coaching and coaching theory is leadership. Really, it's all the same: motivation, goal setting, going from point A to point B, identifying people's strengths or needs. Those are all things you have to consider. And you learned a lot of that through the
absolutely.
sports leadership program, I'm sure, too.
100%. The best thing about the sports leadership program was that what I was learning in the classroom, I could literally take into work with me and
Mm.
look to see how it played out. It also helped that I had like a rock star of an athletic director was like, "Oh, you're doing a paper on the night commission. Do you want me to call this person? They're on the committee, so you can talk to them." I was like, yes, please." So they were very helpful too. So
That's wonderful. you've been in this role now for a couple of years, right? Working on the student
Yep.
athlete side. Some of the things are that you're working on, what kind of programming to assist them. Being an Ivy League school, maybe the athletic scholarships aren't there, but the opportunity for
Mm.
whether they're, some sort of financial assistance, or even now with NIL where they can profit off of who they are. Is that stuff that you try to talk with them about so they understand that?
Sure. Okay, so much. So I'll talk about the three main academic support services programs that I oversee. So one is called the Bear Liaison Program, which is continuing to build. And basically it's faculty, staff, or deans on campus that are linked to a specific team, and they're there just for an additional layer of support for someone to go to help them navigate academics at Brown. Academics at Brown are very unique, and a couple myths that I'll just destroy right now. We actually do have grades. And
Okay.
yes, you can take this pass fail, but not all of them. We do not have GPAs, so but we do have a way of getting them. So but I will say that that builds nicely into the philosophy of the education, because we put students as the driver and the navigator of their educational experience.
Hmm.
And I like to say Brown is the Montessori of the Ivy League. So we just follow the student. Of course, there are requirements once they pick their concentration, but it really is a fun process to watch them explore and see how curious they are about things,
Hmm.
and taking classes. Football players that take theater classes, because I'm like, you need to just do something fun, explore. So it really is a unique educational experience. And so you really do need some at the heart of that educational experience supporting our student athletes to encourage them to be curious.
Hmm.
So I love that program. I sit in on classes. I collaborate with faculty all the time in terms of programming. It is an absolute wonderful program. Um, the faculty members have actually been really helpful with some of their colleagues who just don't understand athletics, and they sort of help them understand it, which is huge for our student athletes.
Hmm.
Um, and then we also have a pretty robust tutor program. The university has their tutor program, which many of our student athletes use, but it's only group tutoring. So it's them and probably 4 or 5 other students in a group. Sometimes that works for our student athletes, but if their schedules aren't as predictable and they really would prefer more one-on-one time, we offer a pretty robust program, mostly STEM classes. We have about 75 to 80 tutors, and then we have a tutor leadership group as well that helps me manage the big number. Um, and then we have something that I actually started 2 years ago. We just finished up its second year, which is academic coaches. And the tutors and the academic coaches are students. That's definitely a theme throughout the university, that collaborative approach, peer to peer learning. Um, the university has had an academic coach program for years. And in my first year here, every time I would try and get an academic coach to help a student with time management, organizing, prioritizing, decision making, study skills, there were never any available because they only had 15 for all undergraduate students. So at the end of my first year, my boss said, what do we need? What do you need? And I said, we need academic coaches. And he said, great, put the program together. So I thought, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. What they're doing is obviously working. I can never get
Hmm.
a coach, right? So they're
Right.
obviously pretty popular and effective. So I partnered with our Curriculum Resource Center, and now we work together to train, onboard, and support our academic coaches. Their academic coaches are very separate, because ours are linked to a specific team. So every team gets their own academic coach. And their focus, while they're a point person, an academic point person for the team, everybody on the team, their focus really is that first year transition, right? Because first years don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And so I think they just have some bigger challenges coming in. And while their, older teammates will help guide them, sometimes it's just nice to have someone that, is not a teammate, not affiliated with,
Mm-hmm.
doing sport, coaches, teammates, to just bounce some ideas off of. So those are my three big academic programs. In terms of career development, I do a career summit each fall where we invite alumni to come back. There's a networking piece, but I'm partnered with the Career Center, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a skill building piece too. So there's breakout sessions, and the Career Center works with our alumni on that. And we have each team has peer career advisors. Again, another peer one-to-one
Yeah.
support system, um, that the Career Center actually they hire, train, manage. I just attach them to a team. And they're basically like, I like to say it's like a career specialist on call. They look at resumes, they help them find internships. They're like really helpful and pretty collaborative for student athletes. Um, and then we have a lot of teams that do career days attached to like a contest where they travel outside of region.
Mm-hmm.
So we rally the alumni in that area. We spend a day, there's networking and panels of alum that talk to
Mm-hmm.
our student athletes. So I usually help plan those with alumni and travel with teams to do that. And then we have this program that's sort of been piloting for like 3 years, but I think we're finally at the stage where we're not calling it a pilot anymore, because we actually hired one person to manage it because between my boss and I, it was like a full-time job, we realized. And it's called Brown Spark, and it is supported through our athletics department and a council of donors. And it's really an career exploration program where we match current student athletes with alum, and they sort of get mentored over the summer. And those alum are expected to connect that student athlete to their network. And so, you could have an alum that's in finance, because that's pretty popular here,
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, I'm going to have you go to New York and you're going to meet my colleague from JP Morgan. And so, you'll spend 2 days with them, and then I'll fly you out to, LA, and you're going to meet my friend who does business accounting for Warner Brothers. And so we've got student athletes going here, there, and everywhere, and we cover their travel so that they can have those experiences, and so that they can be in the room when things are happening, and it helps build out their network as well. So those are my big ones. Those are the big hitters. So
Very exciting uh, to have those programs and services available. It's just amazing and great work for you. And when you think back to when you were a student athlete, and I think back to when I was a student athlete, I had no academic support and I had no student athlete services. I was just kind of on my own, and we didn't even have faculty athletic reps. So professors
mm,
didn't care that I played a sport, and they didn't care that if I had a baseball doubleheader 3 hours away and we had to miss class on a Friday, they didn't care.
yeah,
But those are all important because the student athletes make up a good number of students. I mean, the enrollment is driven by athletics, and the demands on them are much greater than just the regular student because they have practice,
hmm
they have training, they have competition, travel, the academics, like all of those things, but you need to make sure they're successful. And it's
yeah,
a big investment, but obviously the powers that be understand how important that is. So things have,
yeah,
have
yeah.
evolved over the years. That's great to see. All right, so we're getting close to the end.
I would say that athletics is perfect for someone who is really hardworking, um, a able to be, nimble. Like, you really have to be able to pivot, and also dive into a lot of different areas. M I have so much experience in so many different areas because when people offered me to do things, I said yes, and I just made it work. Um, I was always willing to take the lead on things. I raised my hand all the time to, like, start things. So I would say if you're someone who is driven and passionate and also a really good teammate, because it takes a village to make sure that student athletes have a great experience and to make sure that coaches have what they need in order to help and enhance a student athlete experience. Um, I think that being a good teammate is super important. Um, and I think just understanding the goal or the mission and making sure that every decision that you make is getting you closer to that goal. And for all of us here in Brown Athletics, that goal is to make sure that student athletes have the best possible experience that they can. And so that's sort of our driver every day. And that's what helps us with our decision making. So that's the advice I would give. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
All
See
right.
ya.
Thanks. Be in touch soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.